Let's talk about sprucing up those planters for fall.
Yes, you know, it's been very hot.
Yes,
and
it has been.
Hot summer days are over. It's time to think fall.
Yes.
And, you know, the flowers that are in your containers have done their job. They've been pretty all summer. The last part of the summer here, it's been really hot and dry all across the country. So it's time to change out to fall. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do. Some of the plants might still look good, but they might be a little overgrown or they need a little pruning. And if you want to keep them in there, you can. Or if you decide to take everything out and start all over again, you can do all of that.
Right, you have that option.
Have that option.
Gotcha.
And if you're going to you're going to take something out, make sure you dig enough of it out that you can get the root balls and everything, because you're going to be putting something back in there.
Gotcha.
And if the roots can't hold on to an excess amount of soil, well, you might have to put some extra potting soil in there.
That's a good point. Good point.
If you have trouble with, water retention in that container, you might want to put some soil moist crystals in. But if you put some in the spring, you don't need to, because they are still there and active.
Right.
And they usually stay in the ground for 2 or 3 years, and then you have to put more in.
I like that. That is good. And I would like to add this: when you're inspecting those plants, do look to see if they have any fungal issues or insect pests.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things you've got to remember is the same principle that we talked about, is the thriller, filler, and spiller, for containers. You got to have this really nice plant in there that's large and really grabs your attention. Then you need something that kind of spills over the side of the container for our spiller, and then the filler is everything else in between.
Got it.
So let's look at some annuals and perennials that we have available this time of year to put in our containers. And first off are some annuals like celosia. Now celosia, those got those big plumes on them, and they're bright colors like the fall yellows and oranges and reds. And so that would be good as a filler. Coleus, this is the same way. Coleus have usually a little bit larger plants, but you usually don't take more than 1 or 2 of them in a container because they're very large
They're
plants.
nice too. I like those.
But they still do good as fillers. Marigolds, actually, depending on if you already have marigolds in your container, they may have already fallen over, so they can be a filler or a spiller, depending on the age of them and how many you have. Nice oranges and yellows, good colors for fall.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are the pansies and violas. People just, want to put those in, and those come in any color you want, just about. So
they're all reliable standbys.
They're very reliable. And then there are more fillers. There's some of them that are trailing, and if you put them at the side of the pot, they will eventually trail over the side of the pot, but it might take a while for that to happen.
Got it.
And of course, crotons. They sell a lot of crotons this time of year. It's a tropical plant, big leaves, huge leaves, nice bright colors of yellows and reds, a little bit of orange, huge plant, nice thriller plant for your container. Very nice thriller plant.
Sounds good.
And of course, there's sweet potato vines, because they're spillers. They're going over the side of the pot. Then you've got some perennials. Perennials are asters. Oh, the fall asters are really, really pretty. And of course, dianthus. That's another filler. Lots of colors: reds, whites, pinks, purples. And then chrysanthemums. That is a good thriller plant. It's a huge plant. It really grabs your attention. It's nice to start with. Lots of colors to choose from. Always find them available in the fall. Ornamental grass. Now that's another thriller. That's a big plant. It's going to take over a large area on your container. And very nice colors in addition to the texture that it grabs to your container. Rudbeckias. Those are fall blooming rudbeckias, nice yellow, very nice daisy-like or colors that they have. Nice filler plants. Coral bells. Coral bells, oh my gosh. They're vacillate between a thriller and a filler because they are huge and they have beautiful colors on their foliage. And they just do a wonderful job of brightening up your containers. And of course, if you want something falling over the edge, a little perennial creeping Jenny, that will do that. And then of course there's a few vegetables like the ornamental cabbage and kale that they put with pansies all the time. That's kind of a filler. And then the ornamental peppers, again, a filler,
those are
but
nice.
ornamental peppers are yellows and reds and oranges, again, the fall colors. And then Swiss chard, of course, that's got bright colors. And you know what? Swiss chard could actually be a thriller, depending on the size of the container, because those can get pretty big.
Yeah, they can.
Or
Yes,
they can be a filler.
So why perennials versus annuals in containers?
Well, you'll know when the weather changes and we get a frost.
Okay.
Because the annuals will, and especially the tropicals like the croton, they'll be the first to go in the cold weather. And the others, they will live through the winter.
Okay. I like
in
it.
the container.
All right. So can we talk a little bit about drainage?
Sure.
All right. So what do you think about drainage? We got to make sure we have a hole at the bottom of the container.
There definitely needs to be a hole at the bottom of the container. Hopefully you've got that worked out, but if you're putting in new ones, make sure there's a hole in the bottom of the container. You might want to make sure that if you're going to put it on the ground, you might have to put it up on some rocks or something, because if the hole is in the bottom, but the container sits on top of the ground, the water is going to have a harder time getting out of the container, and you don't want the water to sit in the container. If you want to, you can. People do put rocks, a layer of rocks, an inch or two of rocks in the bottom of the container, just to help out with the drainage so that the soil isn't so soggy for the plants that are in there.
Got it. That is good. So let's say we have a early frost. Can we cover those containers?
Oh, yes.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
How would you do that?
I would use a tarp.
Okay. Oh,
and I would go ground to ground.
Ground to ground.
Or if it's up against the house, take it around to the house. From ground up and around to the house. Because the house is going to stay a little bit warm. It's going to give you a little bit of heat for that container. Yes. I would do that.
Okay. And you can also bring it indoors if you like.
You could.
Bring it in the garage maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Or in the home.
Yeah, because a lot of times some areas of the country, the cold snap doesn't last very long.
Right.
And you have a lot of holidays, fall holidays, that you might like your container to look nice. And if you have the choice of being able to save it rather than having to change it out, you can do that. And of course, you also pumpkins and gourds and scarecrows and webbing for holidays, corn stalks.
Yeah.
All of that can add to your container.
I think that'd be so nice. We just have to wait till fall gets here, right?
Yes.
Thank you for the information, Joellen. Appreciate that. Appreciate it much.